Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Delta E's webinar. My name is Arthur Tronick, and I'm here with my colleagues David and Kitty. How are you guys today?
Well, thank you. Hello, everyone.
So on today's webinar, we'll talk about the study we recently published on our customer data value service, which looked at how to create value from smart meter data. So today's webinar is recorded, so this will be made available on YouTube. If you want the slides after the webinar, we can send it to you by PDF. You have the opportunity to have questions. We'll have a Q&A session around the end of the webinar. And if you want us to follow up with you afterwards, let us know, and we are happy to discuss the topic with you. So I can see lots of people joining in a moment, so we are just going to start in a second. In terms of who we are, so myself, David, who is the main author of the report, and Kitty, who supported on this. And you will also see at the bottom of this slide other examples of webinars that we have done or are going to do in the short term. The next one being European State of the Connected Market. And the past ones, actually, one last week was around the online heating sales platforms and how the trends of selling boilers online are evolving. We also did 2 weeks ago on EVs and our recent studies around that. To use the software and to ask questions, so it's very simple. You just have to look at the question part of the software, write down your question, and we are monitoring the questions as we go. Some of them we can type an answer, it's fairly simple. Some of them we will just ask the question on the webinar and try to give our best to answer the question. And for the questions that are a bit trickier or require a bit more time, we will follow up with you after the webinar. That's okay with you? And you can also raise your hand. So we are monitoring you all. Raise your hand. We will try to unmute you to ask the question if time allows. So feel free to engage, ask questions, and let's get started. In terms of the study itself, so we looked at whether or not there will be any value in terms of monetizing the smart meter data. So, David, what's your very, very short answer on whether or not there is value, and if so, what are the values?
Well, yes, the short answer is yes, there is value. Our research covers dozens of ways, in fact, open to energy companies are proactively creating value from smart meter data. We bracket them into four key categories. Firstly, operational efficiencies. So that's about generating efficiencies in companies' day-to-day operations, cost reduction, and operational benefits through initiatives like bill itemization, advances in defect detection capability, and greater marketing effectiveness. The second area is products and services. That's developing existing or new products or services to improve retention and value per customer. Innovative use of smart meter data, such as time of use tariffs, smart pay-as-you-go.
Before we continue, we're just going to fix the echo problem. So this should be resolved now.
Okay, hopefully it's now better. The third area is under new markets. So that's opening up new markets such as flexibility or peer-to-peer energy trading. And finally, the fourth area is direct monetization. So actually directly selling this smart meter data, either anonymized or customer specific, with obviously necessary customer consent in place, to third parties, or via an enabler business, or even adopting an energy insight as a service model to facilitate a new revenue stream. Now we'll be going through all these in a bit more detail shortly. So if the if the sound wasn't too good earlier on, don't worry, you haven't missed anything. We'll, as I say, go through this in a bit more detail just shortly.
Great. So in terms of what we are going to talk about, we will give a short introduction right now about Delta EE for those who don't know us, and about the study itself and our positioning in this market. As David mentioned, the four options are the four groups of monetization from smart meter data. We will go in depth about each of them, giving some examples of companies actually doing this with some specifics around that. We will have a short part looking at the strategic options that you could be looking at depending on what kind of company you are. And we'll have around 10 minutes for Q&As at the end. So again, if you are posting your questions now on the panel, we will try to gather them all at that time and answer as many as we can. And the overall time of the webinar should be 45 minutes. So we have about 40 minutes left, and we'll try to not go beyond this. So in terms of Delta EE, so looking at the list of people currently logged in, most of you will know us, but for those who don't know us well, basically Delta is Europe's leading advisory firm, helping companies on the transition from old to new energy. So the characteristics, as we describe, of old and new are described here. What's really interesting for our area of expertise here is the last three on this diagram: the commodity versus service, the meter points versus customers, and upstream versus downstream values. And that's really how this team is really trying to help our clients navigate the transformation between old and new energy. So these are some of the ways we work with our clients. There's a mixture of subscription services, consulting services, and occasional small conferences that we organize once or twice a year on different topics. We provide this market intelligence mostly to energy companies and relevant technology manufacturers, but also other types of companies interested in customer behavior changes in this industry. So you will see a selection of our clients. We basically work with most of the European energy suppliers and most of the relevant technology manufacturers. In terms of our focus, David, Kitty, and I, it's looking at how the transformation of the energy system will go with the customer. And we actually see there is a trend, a digitalization trend of the customer relationship. And that's at the heart of the energy transformation. So we research all these areas in Delta in general by doing our own primary research, so doing specific customer research, by talking to all types of industry players. And we're also doing constantly research online or testing the products, scanning for what's available in the market. So that's what we call our secondary research. And finally, what we think is our strength is what we sometimes call our tertiary research. And this is all the knowledge, insights, and data we are collecting and have collected in the new energy space, which makes it quite relevant for the digitalization of the customer relationship. In terms of the specifics, the digital services, so we are following what's happening specifically around that, and we have a pretty good understanding of new things like peer-to-peer trading, community, heat as a service, auto switching, etc. We scan what's happening in the digital transaction space, although that's not our core research, but short-term examples like paying your bills through an app or looking at the future impact of blockchain. We have developed extensive research looking at the digital sales platform. So I mentioned the example with the online heating system sales platform. That's a booming market, and that will be a major disruptor for the energy industry. But we also follow what's happening in home services, new energy services, and etc. And the last two parts are actually what this team is particularly interested in. The first one being the digital interactions with customers. So more and more, this is done online, actually. Sometimes via an app, sometimes via live chat or even chatbots. And we are digging into the importance of human interactions versus non-human, and sometimes a combination of both when necessary. So this requires a deep understanding of the customers and of the energy industry, because it is quite specific to energy products. And finally, we are researching for actually over 10 years now the energy insight space, looking at energy monitoring, disaggregations, heating consumption, etc., all of which help customers be better engaged and understand better how their energy is consumed. So all of this space, basically, this model requires a strong understanding of customers, which involves a lot of data, insights, and experience in the space. And we find really hard to believe that anyone can be successful in the new energy space without understanding what's happening around these 5 bubbles here. So I mentioned smart meter data in our energy insights space. So the focus of this webinar is looking at how smart meter data can create value for your business. So this is just a very brief overview. I won't go into details about it, but basically from last year to next year, the smart meter rollout is happening, is speeding up in most Western European countries. And that means a lot more data will be available. And even for the countries which don't have a plan for smart meters or is still being decided, it's very likely that smart meters will be deployed at some point. So there are a lot more smart meters today than there were yesterday. And the key question is how you guys can monetize this data. Just to a quick thought, we are not talking about customer privacy or GDPR in this webinar. We understand that these are really important questions. These are treated in other topics or the reports we do, but for the focus of this webinar, we will look at the value from the smart meter data. In terms of how the data is accessed today, so most of you will know this, but it's always good to have a rough overview of how it's happening. So today the data flows from, in most countries at least, from the smart meter to the data hub, and then to the energy suppliers or the network operators, who sometimes feed that back to customers. So for example, Enedis in France, the network operator, is providing an app to customers, and you can see your electricity consumption hour by hour, I think 1 or 2 days after it happened. In some cases, the energy suppliers will do that themselves. However, with the opt-in from the customer, you can potentially get more granular data out of the smart meter, which can flow directly to energy suppliers, which can flow to third parties, specialists, so software providers or people really specializing in analyzing the data, and then providing a service back to the customer, which would be, again, added value for the customer, but at the same time you get the data. And this is where we think there could be lots of value being created from that. So, David, you have been looking at utilities, you have been interviewing them for quite a few months now. How do you think they see that space, and how do you think they focus around the data space today?
Thanks, Arthur. Yes, utilities have access to vast quantities of valuable data. There's no doubt about that. As markets become more competitive and technology evolves, energy business challenges such as customer engagement and retention are intensifying. So energy companies are looking to smart meter data and device data for innovative solutions to these business challenges. And although energy companies aren't historically data-driven on the main, energy companies are uniquely placed to use the insights that sit behind this data. And this is beyond the reach of other sort of perhaps more data-driven brands in the home. And the billions of data points collected daily from smart meters have economic value. And energy companies are having to adapt fast to leverage this value by setting up innovation teams or reaching out to startups in the market to help them in this race to unlock this value.
Yeah, and that's pretty much easier said than done, but there is a big trend, David, in utilities actually changing the way they communicate to their employees, starting with more agile approaches and recruiting people from outside the energy industry to help set this up. So before we move on, we would like to ask your opinion on a question, which is how you think the energy suppliers are ready to create financial benefits from smart meter data. So you will see a few options. Obviously, it will vary from one country to another, but it would be great to have your opinion on whether most are creating value or nobody's creating value or the options in between. So I'm just launching the poll now. So you will be able to choose one of the options. The options in between are a few companies are creating value, but some of them, most of them are actually not doing, or some have a clear vision. We see actually this as I mean, there is no true answer, obviously. There might be a few companies doing anything, and it's quite hard to know exactly what's happening. But it's always interesting to hear from the industry what your views are and how things are evolving. I will leave the poll open for 5 more seconds, but so far only one person has answered the first choice. Obviously, someone very optimistic about it. To give you an idea of the number of people on the webinar today, we are around 70, 80 people on the webinar, so that should give you significant data. So I'll now close the poll and share the answers with you. And yeah, so the third and fourth answers are probably the most used right now. And I think, David, we kind of agree with that approach. That's something we see as well, talking to most energy suppliers.
Yes, I think for us, there aren't too many surprises there from our conversations with energy retailers in particular. I think a lot of people are exploring. A lot of people are starting to think about this. So it's quite well timed, I think, this webinar to try and understand how to unlock some of this value.
What I find actually interesting is that almost no one voted for. Nobody is really creating value today. So it sounds like everyone agrees that some companies are actually doing the right thing and creating value for their business, and therefore that's really a space to watch. So I'm going to close this now, and we can move on with the webinar. So this second part is actually the meat of the webinar, and we'll talk about the 4 different options that David mentioned, with some interesting case studies as well.
Great, thank you. So we talked about those 4 different categories. So we'll go through each in turn. So the sound wasn't too good to start with, but the first one was around generating operational efficiencies. Firstly, we can deliver cost savings for the business through these improved efficiencies in day-to-day operations. Bill itemization and communications is one way. Billing is a major sort of customer pain point and accounts for a high proportion of customer queries, which obviously cost business money, and a high degree of customer churn, which equally costs a lot of money for businesses. Many suppliers already offer energy insight solutions, including disaggregation, for instance, to break down energy usage into categories or even at appliance level. But very few are trying to actually incorporate that into their billing systems. And of course, it's the bill that actually is the key customer interaction. So a lot of value can be gained by actually linking those 2 things together. As one example, one German retailer is developing this model and are seeing this improved sort of bill transparency is having a big effect on reduced call volumes and diverted contacts also through cheaper digital channels.
And actually, having lived in Germany for a year, I know that this is one of the countries where you have less visibility on what you consume and how the bill is made. So I totally understand that there is a lot of call out to these utilities, and that actually doing something about it will reduce the number of calls. Although Germany is not a country known for smart meters, so there is actually even value without the smart meter data, just with basic data.
Yeah, agreed. And it's not just about the bill itemization itself. It's the general communication around the bill can also leverage opportunities here. So, such as communication around reducing bill shock by forewarning customers of high bills, so they can actually take action around that. That will help increase loyalty and stickiness of customers. This can also be combined with comparisons or energy advice to enable the customer to proactively manage their consumption and reduce call centre contact. So an example here actually would be E.ON Sweden, for instance, which uses a combination of things like appliance disaggregation, consumption forecasts and comparisons, and high bill alerts to ease the frustration around billing and reduce inbound calls. A second area is around fraud detection and prevention. Now, non-technical losses, which is the term for the lost revenue from energy theft and fraud and the like, cost the industry tens of billions of euros every year. The fraud detection and prevention has traditionally been done very manually through site visits and things, or through fairly simple rules. But now with smart meter data, the level of sophistication in data analytics allows for things like anomaly detection or load profile comparisons. So you can actually leverage a lot more value from this. As an example, one Spanish retailer has seen detection rates can be 4 times higher using smart meter data than through traditional means. But it's not just around that. There are other strategies at play here. So, as an example, Endesa and Enel have built in anti-fraud mechanisms into their smart meters. Another big area is around digital marketing that can benefit from smart meter data. Customer profiling or segmentation by energy usage and value will be much more accurate and allow matching then to similar homes in non-smart meter homes, for instance, ensuring greater accuracy right across an energy retailer's customer base, even for those yet to adopt smart meters. In acquisition and upsell, online acquisition tools will have greater quote accuracy and therefore conversion using smart meter data. Tailored product offers to cross or upsell existing customers, whether that be things through time of use tariffs or discounted home insurance for those at home a lot, for instance, or boiler servicing or insulation for those homes that have poor energy efficiency. That is all basically can be extracted from that smart meter data. And then retention, which is a big driver for a lot of the leading retailers. Smart meter data can help lots of activity here, from targeting customers at risk of churn with relevant offers based on their consumption data, to supplying them with digital customer engagement tools using energy consumption insights to help them manage their lives a bit better. An example here would be one energy retailer in New Zealand, which has seen churn reduction of 14% based on smart meter disaggregation and personalized communications. And then the fourth area here is around integration with customer service systems. Now, smart meter data has inherent benefits that we all know, such as automatic meter reading leading to accurate bills, greater transparency and lower cost to serve. But beyond that, there are also proactive ways that smart meter data can be leveraged by customer service teams to reduce call and service time. More efficient complaint root cause analysis, for instance, is one obvious benefit. And more informed customer service agents can lead to better quality customer interactions and therefore retention. And this frees up time then for sales conversations, for upselling, or for data capture to have better quality data. So we've looked at the operational efficiencies. So I'm going to pass over to Kitty to ask a question about what initiatives we are seeing in products and services.
Thanks, David. So what we have seen is that the use of smart meter data can help serve the improvement of existing products and services, as well as the development of new ones. So smart meter data can be used to improve existing products and services, resulting in reduced churn and improved NPS, hopefully attracting new customers, as well as creating new revenue streams. So 2 ways of achieving this are through enhancing existing products and making them stand out in a crowded marketplace by using smart meter data to make adaptations so that they better meet customer needs and expectations. And the second is by offering premium services for extra cost. So a good example of this first type of creating value is the development of smart prepay meters, such as those offered by Boost, a subsidiary of OVO Energy. These provide a much more attractive offer to customers than traditional pay-as-you-go services and are much better suited to their lifestyles and needs, allowing them to top up energy remotely and at any time or place, and also to monitor consumption more accurately via an app on their phones. The second type of value that I mentioned is that smart meter data can allow for the provision of insights to energy customers about how they consume energy, and these can be placed behind paywalls. So our research shows that customers now expect some information to be provided as standard as part of a tariff, very basic consumption insights, but more advanced insights such as alerts and breakdowns of consumption to category or even appliance levels are the ones, so the insights that are arguably more useful to customers, these can be charged additional fees for. So this is the approach that E.ON has taken in Sweden, where customers receive a basic insights package for free, but they pay a monthly subscription fee if they want access to the more advanced package and the more useful insights. And finally, smart meter data and the insight that can be derived from this can be used to develop new products and services that better fit customer needs, while offering new sources of revenue to those that supply them. So, for example, smart meters are enabling energy suppliers, such as British Gas in the UK and a company called Loop in Japan, to deploy new time-of-use based approaches to pricing electricity. These have the potential to empower customers to take greater control over the costs of their electricity consumption, and customers seem to be particularly willing to pay extra for services that they see as being additional. Such as non-energy use cases. So smart meter data can be used to provide security services, such as David mentioned, and can also be used to provide care services. So we're seeing this as a developing market. Examples could be parents receiving notifications when children are home from school, or increasingly energy consumption data is being used in healthcare by companies such as Current Care, CommuniSense, and Houts, who use the consumption data to monitor behavior within the home and provide alerts to caregivers in the event of unusual consumption. So the development of new products and services comes with access to new and adjacent markets and new sources of revenue. So a good example of this is utilities supporting the development of peer-to-peer energy trading between prosumers, which is a growing market segment. While self-generation poses a threat to the traditional energy supply model, some suppliers are embracing the opportunity to satisfy a new customer need, while simultaneously attracting their customer by supplying energy as and when required. So some utilities such as Vattenfall are participating in this space by providing the platform for a small monthly fee, whereby users can purchase energy directly from small-scale and often local producers. They further support this by ensuring that the system remains balanced and providing energy in the event of a deficit. Others, such as EDP in Portugal, are supporting it by offering customers smart controls and energy insights to help them to maximize self-consumption and make the most of their energy investments. They found that this has been particularly effective when the controls are bundled in with solar PV panels or batteries, and is a smart approach for in a country where there is no mandated smart meter rollout and hence low smart meter penetration. What we found is that customers appreciate EDP supporting them in the event of a deficit, but also value this for the peace of mind they have in knowing that they are making the most of quite expensive investments in energy technology, and that they will also always have energy as and when they need it. So another example of utilities entering new markets is the growing ability to offer domestic demand-side response services and to play a more meaningful role in flexibility markets. A number of factors mean that flexibility is becoming a greater priority for utilities, including increasing intermittent renewable generation on the grid, increased instances of peak demand charges, the opening up of revenue streams for ancillary services, and a growing customer awareness of the need for these services and the consequences of not decarbonising the grid. So making domestic loads more flexible can make a significant difference here, provided that smart meters have half-hourly settlement and are sufficiently high in number to allow for significant load shifts. There are various options for utilities entering this space. I mentioned time of use tariffs earlier, which can be used to encourage loads to mirror renewable generation profiles more closely. But we're also seeing examples of gamification to motivate users to reduce consumption at critical periods, and analytical platforms which can use smart meter data coupled with connected devices to remotely automate home energy usage within predefined customer comfort bands. All of these are proving to be most effective when customers have automated appliances, which offers a further monetization opportunity to encourage customers to purchase connected and Internet of Things devices so that they can get maximum benefit from participating in increasing flexibility. One thing that is important to note is that while there is a growing need for flexibility and we expect domestic participants to play an important role in offering such services going forward, few, if any, markets are currently set up to sufficiently reward this. This is therefore a medium to long-term monetization strategy, and it's important to keep on top of market developments as the market evolves to properly incentivize and reward providers of flexibility if utilities are to be able to make the most of the emerging opportunities. So these are all examples of how smart meter data can be used to derive value indirectly, but it's also possible to monetize the data more directly. Right, David?
That's right. Thanks, Kitty. Yeah, the fourth and sort of final area here is actually direct monetization from smart meter data. And smart meter data can be done in four ways. Firstly, through directly selling anonymized aggregated data. This is a simpler but sort of lower value model. You can sell a specific customer data as long as you've got the customer permissions in place, which is higher value and might include, for example, sort of new boiler or boiler maintenance and insulation leads from efficiency insights derived from smart meter data. You can develop partnerships with an enabler business involving data share for and leveraging additional value from combinations of data sources.
David, what do we call enabler businesses in this context?
Well, they could be partnerships. An example might be a marketplace. In fact, it would be a good example here, whereby this is quite commonplace in the US, in fact, where marketplaces then offer discounts on and vouchers on new appliances for those sort of targeted through efficiency insight from smart meter data. Obviously, there you've got potential revenue streams from both product manufacturers and retailers. Commonplace in the US, but I know one European energy giant, it's also on their product roadmap. And then the sort of fourth area here is around establishing an energy insights as a service business for those who already have a successful model and want to roll that out in other markets, for instance. So a good example here would be Eneco's Tunen Energy Insights service, which is through its subsidiary QB, been rolled out in Spain and Belgium. So, direct monetization can feel quite an attractive proposition, but careful thought is needed before going down this route. You need to work out the value of the data that you can either get through national data hubs like DCC in the UK or Enedis in France, or if you're an energy retailer, what additional value can you have over and above that? What about when it's combined with other sources, for instance? But processing data can also be quite complex, and this obviously increases with a number of different parties involved. So you need to have a sufficient internal capability or outsource that capability to be able to deal with that. And of course, the complying with the new GDPR is absolutely paramount. So although, as an example here, although not directly selling data, Direct Energy in France has been issued with a formal notice for failing to obtain customer consent for its smart meter data collection. So, obviously there is a warning flag there as well.
Thanks, David and Kitty. So really interesting, actually, especially on the last point, the monetizing the smart meter data directly. And the Direct Energy story means that the regulatory people are watching what's happening, and this will be more and more important to monetize data while without impacting the brand of the company, and actually we will see lots of things happening, I'm sure, in the coming years and months. In terms of moving on to the strategic options, we would like to ask you actually what you think are the monetization options that would be good for your business, and we'll launch that poll right now. You can select multiple options if you want. If you think all of them are quite important, feel free to select all of them. But we'll be interested to see the trends in specifically your business in terms of where the smart meter data is used and what for, what's already envisioned by the company, or even what you are already doing. So I guess it will depend from one company to another, especially between energy suppliers and other types of companies. But an interesting thought. So far, actually, this what I can see. I'll give it a few more seconds, but 3/4 of the people, 80% now, have voted for the second one. So improving customer products and services. So really highlighting the fact that when you're offering something to customers, you want to use the consumption data to actually improve the services. So I'm just going to close the poll and share the results with you. And yeah, as you can see, improving customer product and services is quite interesting. Quite surprisingly, direct monetization is not something you guys consider too much, and we do see there is some value in that. But as we mentioned, it can be quite tricky, I guess, to make money and to make sure you don't impact your brand by doing this. So quite interesting. Thanks for that, guys. I'll now hide and move on with the next slide.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's interesting poll results, actually. I would probably recommend companies in the first instance go first to operational efficiencies, as it involves fewer parties, is quicker and easier to test, and can bring significant results at scale. But I can see why sort of new products are a very interesting area as well. So what's the right strategic option for you and your business? Obviously, every business is unique, but I think it's important to sort of go through a sort of framework to help filter those ideas. And I think those ideas can be filtered based on consumer needs, considering what's resilient to external forces like competitive threats and regulation, particularly GDPR, we've already mentioned, and also working with the data infrastructure and capabilities you already have. Then from that, it's around prioritization and planning initiatives that align with your strategic goals. And I would advise going to ones that are lower risk and attract sort of short-term return on investment. I feel that if you focus too long-term, the alignment to that opportunity might change and move too far by the time you come to realize it. So because of that sort of need for the short-term focus, obviously balancing companies' own priorities as well, embracing an agile and iterative approach to developing smart meter data monetization options is a good idea, I think, before scaling up. That, of course, in itself might be a challenge, requiring a cultural shift for some utilities.
Thanks, David. So as we approach the end of our webinar, we are going to take the questions now, and already looking through the list of questions, looking at the first. So if you want to write questions, as I said, go on the question part of the software, and we will do our best to answer them as we go. So the first question we picked is, do you think the likes of Google and Amazon will look to access and monetize energy data? And how big of a threat do you think this is? Well, good question. Actually, we are asked this question almost every time. The honest answer is we don't know, because no one really knows what these guys are doing. But our gut feel, at least mine, David, I don't know what you think, but mine is that yes, they will look to access energy consumption data, because that's a type of data they don't already have. I think they have already lots of data on location, on your activities, but not necessarily on what you do within your home all the time. And this could fit nicely with other businesses they have in conjunction with energy. So Amazon having a home services platform with boiler installation in the US, potentially bringing that to Europe quite soon. Having consumption data could help them offer boilers in a better way, to have better marketing around it, possibly heat as a service at some point. And we can also imagine a lot of the direct monetization options as well. So there is also an interesting fact with more and more of the voice interface between the energy consumption and the likes of Amazon and Google. So Alexa has already some skills linked to the voice, and some companies are already using smart speakers to enter your bill or enter your meter reading, potentially linking that to smart meters. And therefore, you could ask Alexa or Google Home to potentially ask how you are doing with your energy consumption. So there are already a few areas that we think could be relevant, but I'm quite sure Amazon, Google, and others will find ways to look at the smart meter data and make good use of it. Another question we had was around the direct monetization of smart meter data, David. And there is a lot of mentioned questions about privacy, but how easy is it for energy suppliers today to ask their customers to share the data, and what do you need to give them in exchange for for sharing the data?
Yeah, it can be a tricky one getting into all the GDPR legislation. I think obviously anonymized data, it bypasses all those sort of concerns around data sharing. But I think when you're talking about specific customer data, then you do need to tread carefully. Fortunately, now the GDPR process is in place. Hopefully, most companies will now be aligned to that and will have done all their due diligence before that. They'll know sort of what's possible and what isn't, and have things in place to be able to do that, whether it be through their own sort of privacy terms, or whether it be how best to reach out to customers and collecting those sort of marketing consents where they haven't already done that. But yeah, it's definitely one to tread carefully, but there are still definitely opportunities in there.
Thanks. We have another question, more around the rollout of the smart meter, so which will depend country by country. But basically, to rephrase the question, some countries are rolling out smart meters, which are, let's say, less smart than other meters. And gradually, for example, in the UK, there is already a second generation smart meter, I think, which can do more things effectively. So the question is around, when do we think there will be a full rollout of smart meters that are smart enough to do all the things we talked about? And actually, we don't know the answer. This is likely to involve lots of political debates and regulatory frameworks, but technically, you can almost do something with any kind of smart meter data. We know that in countries like Spain and Italy, the smart meter data is less granular and less easy to access than in other countries, but we do hope and expect that these will be replaced or upgraded at some point with more interesting smart meters to access the data. And when some countries will show and demonstrate that customers get a lot of value out of it, that consumption can be reduced, we do expect that the politics will actually plan to upgrade most of the smart meters. But again, a country by country question, I would say. Okay, so we've got 3 minutes left for the webinar. So any other question, we will have to get back to you after the webinar. Just to give you a short summary of what we do in this. So I explained this framework at the beginning of the webinar, but basically on the right-hand side, the digital customer interaction and insights is all we are doing with Kitty and David here. We are constantly researching this space. So we have existing studies on customer engagement, on disaggregation, on the activities of energy suppliers with energy insights. We have also potential upcoming studies. So we are currently working on the psychology of energy customer behavior, which is quite interesting. What small things to do so that customers can reduce their consumption without investing a lot of money. We are looking at the customer experience analytics, so with chatbots or speech analytics. We are currently thinking about doing a review of the whole European market and a numbered way of tracking how many customers have access to apps, to energy insight solutions, and seeing the evolution of this market. So we're doing quite a lot in this. So if you are interested in looking at the studies, please get in touch. We're very happy to discuss this with you. And as I mentioned before, in the other areas, we have done lots of research as well. So on home services, storage and flexibility, EVs, etc. All of these involve digital services, digital platforms, and it's quite critical to understand this whole landscape in order to make a better decision. And yeah, obviously, new energy is all we do. And we do believe that understanding the trends in the digitalization of the customer relationship is quite key. And if you want to be successful in this space, that's something you will need to get your understanding of. And finally, to conclude this webinar, this is a summary of our services and Delta. So at the top, the research services, subscription-based, and at the bottom, the knowledge-based consulting. And our team here is currently looking at the customer data value, which is part of our digital research, with a lot of crossovers with other areas like business models, like our heating markets research, our flexibility and storage research, and EV markets as well. So that's it for now, right on time. Glad this happened. So I hope you enjoyed the webinar. I hope you learned one or two things, hopefully not too much repeat from what you already knew. If you want to get in touch with us afterwards, please do. We're always happy to have a good chat around smart meter and data and value. As I mentioned before, the webinar was recorded, so it will be made available on YouTube. If you want a link to that, let us know. If you want the slides on PDF, let us know. And if you want more information about our subscription services, please also send us an email and we'll be happy to discuss that with you. So thank you very much, David. Thank you very much, Kitty. And see you next time, everyone. Bye-bye.